would like to share my screen, if you don't mind. I want to stand on existing protocol. I'll stand on existing protocols. Thank you. This speech by Mrs. was so powerful. I appreciate that also. So I'm going thoughts around running a low-cost based business while making 9 figures for you. This is the distance.
Excuse me, coach, if you can hear me, please, sir. Coach Sam, can you hear me? Coach Sam, we can't hear you. You are breaking. Your network is somehow. I think. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can hear me, Coach Sam is actually having some network issues at this point in time. Let's give him some minutes to come back to us while we are waiting. Coach Sam is going to talk to us about how we can run a low-cost based service business while making 9 figures. I am very, very excited, waiting to hear what he has to say to us, because running a business in itself is difficult enough. Yes, Coach Sam, thank you so much. We can hear you. It's much better now. Go ahead, sir. Okay, we can see your screen.
Okay, thank you. Apologies. Okay. Already defining businesses. Please confirm you can still hear me. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, Coach Sam. We are really struggling to hear you. The network is bad at your end there. Please, can you try to troubleshoot that, please?
I noticed my net. Can you hear me now?
We hear you much better. Yes, sir.
I really do apologize for the network.
No, that's fine. We know how the network can be sometimes. So, how do you want to go forward with this, sir?
Well, let's see how this runs. I could probably wrap up in 5 minutes. Let's see how that runs off.
Okay, go on this one.
Hello, Coach Sam.
Okay, can you hear me now? I changed my location. Let's know if this place is better. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's better.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I had just tried to define service business, and I'd like you to see service business basically as I am providing work, direction, or information for people, whether it's going to be backing up products or not. Please, do we get that? And are you still with me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead,
good.
sir.
Okay, thank you. So, I'll be asking some questions. I would like all the participants to write these questions down. The answers you give to these questions will determine whether you are going to be able to run a successful service business in 2021 while increasing your profit margin. I'm very, very strong, and I'm a strong believer in enlarging your margins. I'm a strong believer in enlarging your margins. I'm someone that believes that you must seek every opportunity to cut down your costs so that you can increase your margins. I'm someone that believes that you don't need to raise your fees unnecessarily, but if you lower the cost of getting things done, your margins will continue to give you good numbers. I love good numbers. I love to make a lot of money. These are some of the subconscious beliefs that can drive your outcomes in 2021 and beyond. So the first thing we want to talk about is, what's the value chain in your service business? You want to be able to write out a process definition step by step, from the beginning of what I call my service to the point when I have fulfilled the customer request. What is the step-by-step value chain? What are the different areas in my service delivery that I am prosecuting as a service? So let's look, for instance, a typical business owner in AWEP. Let's use, say, the coconut producing arm, the Nakopma guys in AWEP. Let's assume that's a service chain. So there is a point in that service where we need to establish a farm where we should plant coconut. That's a point in the service chain. We need to plant the seeds. We need to tend the seeds. We need to take care of the trees. We need to harvest the coconut. Then we need to start producing the different processes in the value chain of coconut. Then we need to sell. Then we need to recoup. And then we need to replant. All that is a complete value chain. And at every point, you can serve a customer. So the first thing you want to do to be able to know how to lower your cost and maximize your profit is to define the sequences in your value chain. In simple terms, write step by step how you deliver your service. In very simple terms, step by step, how do we deliver our service? Write it first. The next step is, what is the cost structure for each juncture in your value chain? For every step by step, for each step in that sequence, what does it cost us to do it? If there is a point in our value chain that we are calling customers, what is the cost of calling how many customers? If there's a point in the value chain where we have to warehouse something, what's the cost of warehousing? What's the cost of follow-up? What's the cost of internet? What's the cost of marketing? What's the cost of selling? What's the cost of delivery? What's the cost of every single item? You want to write down the cost of what it takes. Now, the third point is, for each cost item, you want to determine, is this a critical cost item or a mandatory cost item or an optional and avoidable cost item? 3 elements in your cost. For each cost in the sequence, for each cost in the value chain, you want to determine the criticality and whether it is mandatory or optional. Let me give you an example. When the lockdown started, many schools were really worried. Oh, we don't know what to do. We want to run online or we don't want to run online. And then when some decided to start running online, not third term, more like second term, there were now decisions around what subjects should we run online and which subjects does not have to be run online. And then we now found out there are basic subjects that must mandatorily be done, like mathematics, like English, maybe like integrated science. But subjects that didn't have to run were subjects like cultural arts, like sports, P&E, physical education. Those may not have been mandatory at that point. So you want to check your service chain and ask yourself, what is mandatory? What is optional? And for the one that is mandatory, is it critical or non-critical? By the time you're able to define these technologies, you're able to know which one should I be investing my monies and my energies and my resources in, and which ones can be, stepped down. Then the next question you want to ask yourself is, what is the revenue stream for each juncture on your value chain? There's something I normally tell my business community. Don't tone down your luxury life. Rather, increase your revenue making. And that's what happens here. Instead of you trying to find all the means to cut cost, if you have established mandatory and critical points in your value chain, you want to actually ask yourself, how much can we milk this value chain? How can we maximize the opportunity of this value chain? How can I milk this point in my value chain? Some of the things I notice many of us don't do is that we're very quick to sell just one component of our service, and we don't explore all the wide possibilities of our service. And let me give you 4 broad ways to milk your service chain. 4 broad ways to milk your service chain. Number 1, you want to productize a service. One of the best ways to prove you're an authority in a service business is to create products from the service business. It's very important. So a typical company like Paystack would have just been telling us that you can make payments through us, but they created a product called Paystack. InterSwitch created a product called Verve. So you must create a product from a service. That way you can define your authority in that service. Number 2, you must create service touch points. Your services must become products by themselves. It's very important. People shouldn't perceive your service as, well, if I want to patronize them, I can. They should patronize your service as a product by itself. That's number 2. Number 3 is that you must be able to create platforms from your services. Platforms. So this conference is a platform, for instance, that AWEP can make money from. So AWEP can have products, AWEP can have services, and then AWEP has platforms. So if you have a Telegram platform, you have a conference like this, you have a summit, or you are partnering with sister organizations to bankroll their events or sections in their events, you are creating platforms. That way you're able to increase your revenue streams using the same service. And then the fourth vehicle to maximizing your service points is to create tools. So the years of AWEP is celebrating 10 years. Are there entrepreneurial tools that are proprietary to AWEP, like business plan templates, like business model canvas templates, like digital templates? What are the successes of AWEP's work in different regions and countries that can be converted into templates and tools that can become something people can subscribe to? So that way you're able to increase your revenue stream and milk every single service point. If you don't maximize every single service point, the cost of maintaining the service point may in the long run overwhelm the revenue you're generating from those service points. And then the last question is, what's the net for each juncture in your value chain? By the time you look at the cost of each juncture in your value chain, vis-a-vis the profits or the revenue from that same value point juncture in the value chain, does it give you a positive outcome or a negative outcome? And for me, like I said, always strive to increase the service point and the revenue you can generate from your service chain. Now, before I wrap up, let me say 3 things. And I call it, what are you pretending not to know? The first thing is, sometimes one-time capital cost can save you long-term expenses. I remember sometime last year, AWEP was muting the idea of developing an ERP. If AWEP had implemented it for the next 10 years, you probably will realize that one-time cost will net off the long-term costs. And every business in AWEP should consider that, because every business in AWEP can actually develop a mini ERP that manages all the operations within the system. That's number 1. Number 2, like Mrs. Ogunlesi has said sufficiently, and corroborated by Mr. Aderoba, technology is not a luxury. Technology is a do or die matter. So you need to explore technology to increase the possibilities of your service chain. And no business is too small to involve technology. It's not possible. Then number 3, to maximize the service of your, the profits and returns of your business, you must adopt a functional culture in your business. Culture will eat strategy for breakfast. If your culture is dysfunctional, your strategies cannot deliver the goals. So you must define a culture in your business that makes service high revenue culture. You must define a culture that says our focus in this business is to increase revenue and lower expenses, and do minimum 5x of revenue for every cost. For every cost we are spending at every service point, we must make 5 times the revenue, which is why you must milk every service juncture to be able to increase your revenue. Thank you for listening to me, and I appreciate being at your conference.